Hello everyone, it's Gigabeef here, and today we're going to take a look at skill leveling, which is extremely important in Escape from Tarkov as it's one of the more painful sides of character progression in this game. You can easily get locked behind quests or hideout progression if you're not thinking about it, so stick around and let's get going. In a perfect world, the skills would slowly gain over time as you level up your PMC, conveying small improvements that add up to something noticeable. For the most part, this is how the skills are implemented, but unfortunately, some of the more important skills are tied into the hideout for progression and also certain quests. If you don't realise that these are coming, it can be a huge hindrance on moving forwards with new modules in the hideout or important quest lines, which leads players to look at running raids to power level to the required amount, otherwise known as cheesing. I almost didn't make this video because honestly, I don't really like how this mechanic ends up working out, and it's not how Tarkov should be structured in my opinion. But ultimately, this is how the game is right now, and we have to do everything that we can to get by. So here it goes. Today we're going to talk firstly about the skills that are most important to pay attention to early, then we'll think about how the system works in order to level these efficiently, and finally we'll visit the Shoreline Suffering Centre, which is like a gym for forcing your PMC through horrific skill leveling, in particular Vitality. We're going to start by focusing on 3 potentially really annoying blockers which most players end up facing if they're doing the hideout for the first time, which are getting Vitality level 3, Metabolism level 3, and Attention level 3. To get to the higher levels of the hideout and most importantly the Bitcoin farm, you need to get the Intelligence Center to level 2, which requires the Med Station at level 3 and the Nutrition Unit at level 3. I don't want to spend too much time looking at this as I did a whole video on level 2 Intelligence Center and the path for getting there, and as far as I'm aware nothing has really changed for 12.9. However, to get Nutrition 3 you need Metabolism 3 and the Water Collector at level 2, which in turn needs Attention level 3. Then to get the Med Station up to level 3 you need Vitality at level 3. I want to focus on Vitality first, because this is the one that I always get stuck on each wipe now, and kinda depends on your playstyle as to whether you manage to get this to 3 by the time you need it, but I always hazard a guess that unless you're playing 24/7 Factory or PvP Resort running and fighting lots of PMCs, it's highly unlikely that you'll have this at level 3 Vitality once you've completed all the other prerequisites in the hideout. The main reason for this is the way to get the skill up is basically to take damage, and I mean a lot of damage, like multiple HP pools worth of damage. This makes it take a very long time for careful players that use positioning and tend not to get shot a lot, and taking 1 thorax or 1 headshot's worth of damage where you die instantly is not very helpful for leveling the skill. So if you're the type of player that either doesn't take much incoming fire, or either ends up surviving with full health or dying without ever healing, this is going to take you ages without cheesing it. We're going to look at a way to get this done quickly, which is basically using barbed wire so that we can control exactly how much damage we take, but hopefully we can combine it with a few other skills at the same time, which we should look at first. So a very quick overview of some of the other skills that are important early. Firstly, Strength, which used to be in this category 2 for Vents level 3, but the requirement was lowered to Strength 2, and now it seems much easier to level this wipe as well, which is primarily by running whilst overweight, i.e. when you're carrying enough that your weight counter goes yellow. You used to have to either hit people with melee weapons to level this, as you can imagine players teamed up to hit each other in the leg with a crowbar and a grizzly kit, which was so unbelievably stupid as a mechanic, but there you go, or throwing a metric ton of grenades. I didn't even have to force it at all this wipe, so really I don't think it's a big deal anymore. Endurance level 2 is technically needed for Heating 2 and Security 2, but you should get it from walking at a normal weight and sprinting, so this levels quickly as well and should come naturally with PMC play. Metabolism is the next one that's very much in our control and can get you stuck. This gets leveled by refilling your energy and thirst specifically in raid. I like to do this one by refilling these at the start of a raid with food and drink when hungry and thirsty from the previous one. Alternatively, you can keep these items on you and use them partway through a raid, but unless you keep them in your secure container, which is valuable space, especially for standard account players, you will lose them if you get killed before you get a chance to use them, given that you have to wait until the bars are low enough. It doesn't give you experience if you're on full hunger and thirst, so you can use negative thirst items like analgin painkillers, or food like Slickers and even jars of mayo if you want to get this to 0, and then drink immediately to level this if you want to do it a little bit quicker. This wipe I had this skill under control, but I forgot about it last wipe and ended up running through Factory 5 times, eating Slickers bars and drinking water before slipping out of a side exit, so don't end up getting stuck like I did. One other note about Metabolism before we move on is that once you have the flea market, the Aquamari waters are your best friend for efficiency. These cost a little more than the regular drink items at about 18k, but they hold 150 units of water and for some reason quench 2.3 times more quickly than a regular drink item because they actually hold 350 points of hydration recovery. This means if you use 20 in raid, you end up actually getting back 46 points of hydration, so bear that in mind so you don't drink the entire thing in one go. They also come with a little boost for energy too, so are very cost efficient in terms of rubles per point. The only unfortunate thing is that they are 2 slots. Attention is the other early sticking point skill, but this is quite hard to cheese as it's leveled by looting, specifically searching through bags, boxes, containers and bodies and uncovering these for items. That being said, this was the skill out of the 3 that I didn't really have to try to level personally. I had about level 2.5 by the time that I needed it, so just keep looting as normal, and this should get there roughly the time that you need it. I also want to make an honourable mention to the sniper skill, which you have to level throughout the quest series, but the first place this crops up is Tarkov Shooter 4, where you need it at level 3. Only the bolt actions level this skill, and as most people don't use these outside of maybe the Mosin at the beginning, they tend not to get levels in this skill without forcing it. The easiest way to cheese this one is to reload the Mosin, as each time you reload, the chambered round flies out so you can endlessly reload the gun over and over again, and loading rounds in gains you quite fast experience in this skill. There are a couple of others like stress resistance and health that are needed for later quests that I'm not going to go into much detail on, as they are not problematic early for the hideout. So how do we level our skills most effectively? Once we're in raid, at the start, every skill gets a boost of 29% extra, which means we get bonus points for getting experience to begin with. This is shown with a small blue arrow pointing upwards. Then, these days there are diminishing returns in the system, so the more you try to level a skill, the less experience you end up receiving. You can track this in the stats window, as once a skill receives some XP, the bonus is removed and you will level it at a normal rate of 100%. Then, if you try to push more XP into it, you'll start getting penalised, which is 60% to begin with, and then gets even lower if you keep going. You can simply mouse over the skill in the window and it'll tell you where you are in the progression. Okay, so I hear you say, well, that really sucks then, because I can only level my skills once per raid and then I don't really get anything back for them. Well, not quite. The diminishing returns red arrow actually has a reset timer, and we can get it back to 100% by not leveling anything in that skill for 5 minutes. So we won't get a bonus, but at least we can reset it to the normal amount of experience for a while. To do this though, you have to gain absolutely no XP at all in that skill for the entire 5 minutes. This can make it quite hard to power level skills like endurance, as you're basically not allowed to move at all. One thing to remember about this is that the indicator in the skills menu doesn't update back to 100% until you attempt to gain more XP in that skill once the 5 minutes is up, so you have to remember when your 5 minutes started before you start leveling it again. I typically use the in-raid timer to keep a track of this. If you get it wrong, you'll have to wait a whole other 5 minutes before you can try again. This way you can level skills over and over if you leave enough space in between. However, this can be tricky in a real raid, as you kind of want people to leave you alone rather than hunting you down like a rabid dog. I mentioned before that barbed wire is probably the best way to power level vitality, but when you're actively looking for it, it's surprising how hard it is to find barbed wire in a safe place that's free of other PMC activity. I've investigated a few different areas, but my favourite is this hellish corner on Shoreline, which is going to be our gym of suffering. So what you want to do is load yourself up with a grizzly kit for vitality training, which is the bare minimum given that vitality is likely to be the issue, and think about your kit for training some of the other skills along the way. Given we're going to do something incredibly dull, we may as well get the best bang for our buck out of it. Bring some food and drink for leveling some metabolism, along with the fact that you can only last something like 2/3 of a raid at low levels of metabolism anyway before running out of energy and water, so this will be detrimental to your skill training if you run out and have to leave early. Then, you clearly don't need anything special for endurance, but you can technically bring some heavy items like empty metal gas canisters if you want to train strength, or a Mosin and a stack of T46M rounds to train your sniper skill, which is the one that I recommend because I find that quest incredibly tedious. One other weapon to point out that you could bring, and you can take both if you want, is the stock SKS and a stack of PS or T45 and use the same technique as the Mosin, which levels the assault rifle skill. It's quite slow to do, but this one reduces recoil when leveled on all guns that broadly fall under assault rifles, because as far as the skill is concerned, there is no category for assault carbines, so the SKS counts and the reloading thing works in the same way as the Mosin. Next, we have to navigate our way to the training ground, which is down in the southeasterly corner of the map by the trains. The start of the raid on Shoreline is the time you're most likely to run into someone on the outside of the map and people moving aggressively at spawn points, so find a nice spot to lay low for the first 5 minutes would be my suggestion. Use this time to start leveling the Mosin with reloading. Once you hit red on the skill, take a note of the time and wait 5 minutes before trying it again, but usually I'm moving to the pain gym in this time. I often will bring 2 weapons and insurance for the Mosin once I run out of rounds, and this will prevent losing it in case I do meet someone and they loot all my gear when they kill me. Watch out that you don't get blown up by the mines in the area along the way, as someone might come to investigate. This area is 99% perfect, the only catch being that there is one cache here that I'd rather wasn't there, as someone might come along to check it, but it's a rather remote location with nothing else going on, so it is unlikely. We have our barbed wire in the corner, and a nice low-lying piece of ground here where it's hard to spot us that we can chill in between our suffering sessions. So once we reach our destination, get yourself comfortable and rub on the barbed wire, and keep an eye out on your health as you really don't want to black anything, and keep healing up. As a random side point, you do actually get a surprising amount of experience for doing this due to all of the healing, which does give you points on the end screen. Again, once you hit red on the skill, take a note of the time and step out of the barbed wire. Time to do something else. If your energy and hydration are low enough to fill completely without wasting any, then time to take on some nourishment for metabolism. Otherwise, we can train any of the other skills that we came equipped for, and one more that I didn't mention, which is covert movement, which you also don't need anything special for. Walking around at low speed, i.e. when the speaker icon shows no sound, you can get some experience in this skill while you wait, which is a useful one as your PMC becomes quieter in a few different ways. It's done off distance travelled, so it's most efficient to walk, not crouch, at the fastest speed that you can, with the speaker still showing no sound. Once our 5-minute timer is up on Vitality, rinse and repeat. Using this method, you can level Vitality, which is our focus, but also work directly on Strength, Endurance, Metabolism, Sniper Skill, Assault Rifles, or whatever else you brought with you to level alongside. When you're happy with the amount, run out of meds, or run out of time, make your way to the extract and reset if needs be in another raid until you achieve level 3, or whatever level you like for that matter. It might be dull, but you'll hit your skill points in no time. So please do consider dropping a like and a sub if you found my content useful, and hopefully this can avoid you some pain if you're stuck at one of these skill thresholds. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch to catch me when I'm live. Until then, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.